my first modular buildings that I had built. It's a museum of natural history. And the dome here was constructed by just using hinge plates and using hinge bricks to put the slopes at an angle to create the illusion of a round dome on top. But there are gaps in between all the slopes, and it's not hollow inside, it's solid. And so why my first fascination with making domes is partly because I'm from Minnesota, and growing up while watching the Twins, who played in the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, I watched all the baseball under a dome. And so my brothers and I, when we were little, designed stadiums where we could basically play tiddlywinks with a minifigure head and hit the ball into the outfield. And basically we had a fantasy league for baseball where we would keep scores and play against each other. But one of the main problems with this game was that it was quite easy to hit the minifigure head outside of the stadium. And so one way that I had figured out how to keep the ball in play was to construct a dome across the top, which I basically did as a cutout. And so that's kind of how I got started. So when I designed a baseball park several years ago, my older brother asked me, why don't you put a dome on top? And so basically, all right, why not? But that was basically a challenge, because how do you put a dome over the top of a stadium without having it collapse upon itself, especially if it's something that large? And so to do this, basically I had to revise the technique that I had started with the Museum of Natural History. So as I go through the way that I've constructed each of the domes for my creations, I will have a little diagram to show you how it was built. So I design everything in Lego Digital Designer first, and while I'm doing that, I have to imagine, because designing virtually, you're designing and you're building in a zero gravity environment. And so things are never going to collapse upon themselves. So what I have to imagine is this part going to come apart from another piece? And are things going to stay together, or are they going to dislodge from each other? And so what I'm showing here is a piece that is where the angle is locked with each other, and also a distance between two bricks that is fixed. So you have to, when you're designing virtually, you have to think about, is an angle going to contract or move? And you also have to think about, is this length also going to move? So the parts that I use to do this are hinge plates, 1x5 plates with the axle hole through the middle. Also, I use these angular connectors, which are held together with a pin. And I also use fixed angle connectors. And to create the texture out, and so you can make angles with putting axles through here and then attaching Technic bricks to the axles to create a shape. You can also use plates with axle holes on the bottom to attach pieces to axles. And you can also feed large Technic bricks through the axles as well. So these are the parts that I usually start with. And so if we're going to start simple, this is one of the domes that I had created on a small scale to sit on top of a castle. So it's an oval-shaped dome. And here you will see that, for example, this angle here in the dome is fixed by the part itself. And even though it's fixed, the axle can easily pull apart from the other pieces here. So this area of the dome is loose and is only held together by the tension of the axle and the connector. Up here, however, this angle is loose, but the distance between it is locked in place. So you have to think in terms of, is this going to move and is this locked in place? And so you try to create some redundancy between the pieces. So scaling this up, here for the aerial arena, I had a larger many-sided circle here, and each of these are connected by hinge plates and also these loose angle connectors. And so the dome can, if you push on each of the sides, you could collapse the dome like a piece of paper. And so when you lift this up, you have to keep your hands equally spaced apart, otherwise the whole thing is going to pop up and it will just fall apart on itself. But the structure of the dome, these connectors here create the rigidity, but it can also pull apart in this direction. And this was also the case of the dome over the stadium, where these angles were fixed, but the latitudes were not fixed. And I'm going to skip through to the end, and I want to get to a part where I have kind of modified the technique that I'm doing. So here I've created a hull of a boat, and something that's different with this is that I'm using the fixed angle connectors, and these are locked into place by these quarter gears. And so by doing that, not only is the angle locked here, but the distance between these parts is also held together by the fact that you have fixed it to this piece here. And so that's creating some redundancy and some strength to the build. And so this brings me to a modification of what I had shown before, and this is similar to techniques that were shown in a couple sets, 7661 from 2007 and 75191 from 2017. And I call this this was a technique that was used to make the hyperdrive circle on Obi-Wan Kenobi's starship. And by doing this, the designers had used these fixed angle connectors and to lock in an angle, and they strengthened that and kept the parts from the axles from pulling it out of the connector by backing that up with a lift arm or beam. And so this is a more recent technique that I've moved into to create domes. And then to put plates over the top, then you use the plates with the snap underneath. So an example of this is the hourglass that I had built, where the angle is fixed in the corners by using the 16-sided connector, and the length of each of the segments is also fixed because you backed it up with a beam in between. And so that creates rigidity to the spherical shape. And the same technique is used for the bowl underneath the hourglass, shown here, where the quarter sphere gears is creating rigidity to the sphere at the bottom, and you have the fixed angle connectors, and then you also have beams along the rim to lock in the distance between each of those angles. And so I took this one step further recently for the dome on top of the Apple Square University, where here I'm using beams to create the angles adjoined from axles here. And so this distance is fixed. But the direction of the angle is not, because this is just attached through an axle. So this is actually a loose angle here. But all the distances are fixed with each other by beams, and so it can't pull apart from each other. And around the perimeter of the circumference of the dome, these angles are also fixed by the beams. And so the dome cannot pull apart horizontally, and it can't pull apart vertically. And while some of the angles going across, the length of the dome are not fixed. The angles going the other direction are fixed, and this overall creates enough rigidity that you can actually just pick it up, and it won't collapse horizontally, and it won't collapse vertically. And so that's basically the talk that I had prepared. And so from here I can go into Lego Digital Designer, and I can show you my process of how I make the domes, and I could make one from scratch. If anyone from the audience would like to volunteer about how many sides of a dome you want me to make, and what the diameter of the dome should be, and then I can show you, and then I could make one from scratch. So 8 sides. That's, how about we do something a little bit more complicated? Give me an odd number. Okay, 21 sides. That sounds great. So I will pull up a calculator, and so one of the first things you have to do is 360 divided by 21. And so that's about 17 degrees. And what diameter do we want for the dome in studs? Volunteers? So let's go over here. So let's see. So if I take this piece here, oh no, I can't see my, oh, there we go. Okay, so that was, I'm trying to pull up my calculator. 17.1428. So we're
Your slides are still showing. Did you want to be showing LDD instead?
Oh, yeah, I will do that. Thank you. There we go. Okay, so 17.1428. 5857. Okay, so if we start with this, and okay, does anybody have a size diameter they want to do? Or what? We'll just pick something at random here. Okay. So if we pick like 7 sides or 7 connector here. And let's grab one of these as well. And we're going to set this to the same angle. 17.142857. And so we can set an axle this direction. And we're going to replicate this, and we're going to add a couple hinges. And like that. And then let's create some rigidity over the top of the dome by adding a connector. Like this one. And let's make the dome not too big, so we'll make it at an odd angle here. Okay, so then we're going to duplicate this part and put it here. And I can see that, and we're going to copy that there. And so those are not lining on top of each other. So we will have to So let's look at some, I'm going to stop for some questions. Does the nitty gritty of the geometry come into it much, or do the axles and loose joints allow you to fudge things to your satisfaction? Basically, you can fudge things and try things by trial and error after you have decided how big you want it to be by first going through some of the math. Oh, and I remember this part is not supposed to be in there first. And so we will have to set some of these pieces out here first before we put that other one in there. Oh, and for the sake of, because we're working with odd sizes, I will make this a little bigger. That should make it easier. Okay. Okay. So if we have this, then we can duplicate that and put it over here. And we don't know exactly where that angle is going to fit. So we're going to put a connector on both sides. And then we take this and we let Lego Digital Designer tell us exactly how to center it. So we're going to center it there. And you can see that it is not exact because you can see there's a little space in there. So that's a little bit of error. And that's what kind of makes it loose if you're going to be choosing some odd angles. The smallest size dome I've made basically is on top of that snail that I made, and that's about 16 by 16 or so. So this is the first segment. So from here, we can actually start to build up. And I think first I want to make sure that this is going to fit. And it will still fit. Okay. So go back here and we're going to make these in, I think since this is 21 sides, we could make these in 3s. I won't make them in 3s yet. Okay, so here, the segment here is about, we're using a 10 connector, so let's use this for this direction as well. Actually, let's just make this once so we can go through it faster. Okay, and then, oops, and at the top, I'm going to put more connectors. And then we want to be able to put plates on it. So we're going to take bricks with cross holes and put them in here because these won't rotate. And we can have between them bricks to hold them all together. And if we wanted to cheat some parts, we could, no, we won't do that. I know what I'll do. For here, I could use connector peg with friction. Here, could use a 6x8 brick. And at that point, we can see if I've left myself enough room to put it on the other side, and I have. And so now we're a little bit further up. And so we're going to have to connect both of these panels. And so let's see if we can do that by using the parts here. And now we see it's gotten a little bit too close so that this can't fit in anymore. So what I'm going to have to do is move the pins in closer to each other. And we'll try this. And then we'll see if we can put this in between. And it fits now. Okay, and then you just kind of repeat this process all the way up to the top. And we might have to use something else down here. Okay. Move these further in. There we go. And I'll have to do the same over here. And then go up there. And then we're getting close to the top. Okay, so let's see how much room we have between this side and the other side. And those are going to fit. And we'll have to move this over here. Okay, so that's going to work. So we still have space in here, and we can fill that up because otherwise this is going to move back and forth too much. So we'll fill that with a one-sided angle connector like this, so that now it won't move back and forth more than that much. And we'll have to do the same over here. Okay, and now we're close to the top. And for that, we can use a 4x6 brick. And, oops. So for that, we'll want one of the longer connectors. And we can put 1x4 brick here. There. There. And since we're near the top, we probably won't have too much room. So we'll have to use one of these instead. Or no, regular pin with friction. And then this is here. And then we want to use that there. Okay, so these parts at this point are, these axles here are too long. So I will want something that is 3 plus half. So that would be 4, 5, and 6. So I want a 6 axle 6M. And for the top, this is 1, 2, 3. So I'll pick an axle 3M. And I will want to duplicate this on the other side. Oops. Okay. I think at this point I can duplicate it. And this part is too long. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. So here I want to make sure that I have a third side, and I want these connectors through the middle. Okay. So with 4 sides, this is going to be 21-sided. So we have to take off the 4th side. So we have to look for everything that's connecting to it. And we have to delete it. And with that, you can just copy this part here and then paste it 7 times. That's 1, so we have 2. And if it's getting hard to connect, then you can hide everything except the one piece that you want it to connect to. And then that way, Lego Digital Designer will see where to put it. Okay. And then we want to unhide this. And now we have a 21-sided dome where we have to figure out how to adjoin the pieces at the apex. But so I have 10 minutes remaining. So instead of figuring out the top of it, I will take through the process of how I decide where to put the panel. And so basically here you just look to see what is going to fit. And here it's just kind of trial and error with a bunch of, here you just use trial and error to see what is not going to collide with each other. And so here, then you can pick out some wedge plates and you basically trial and error to see what kind of wedge plate pattern is going to best fill out the gaps. Anyway, so we're going to need some long, skinny plates, I think. So for what we can do here, we can alternate one side would be a wedge, and then one side would be a rectangle. Like that. It isn't perfect when you're trying to fill in the gaps, and so it takes a lot of going back and forth at this point. And sometimes you'll see that you don't want an exact stud length. And so here you can use the Technic bricks to your advantage to stagger things over as you would by using a jumper plate. And so if you want something just a half increment over, you can put a bunch of 1x1 plates over here and to fill in the gaps. And so here it's getting closer to something that should be more acceptable. So here we could also use a long skinny plate, and then we could fill in the other side with a rectangle. And first, let's see how close we can get that. And here, sometimes you'll see that although this part fit here, if you start to use plates, you'll either have to build it up so that it can clear the brick underneath, or you might have to go back and remove that brick and find a different way to connect it in here. And one thing that makes Lego Digital Designer really great is because it tells you what pieces are going to collide with each other before you even try with the real pieces. So there's a question, do I prefer LDD to Studio? And yes, I do, because I think the collision detection is better in LDD than in Studio. However, Lego did buy out Bricklink, and because they did that, they will eventually take over control of the Studio software. And so my hope is that the Studio software will improve to a point where it is a little more user-friendly than it is right now, and with better collision detection, better camera, that I will switch over then. So this dome in LDD, let's see how big this is. This is, if we take a 48 by 48 plate, or better yet, well, just thinking. We'll have to give it a moment. Okay. So if we copy this, open up the other Lego Creations, Hollow Domes. This was the stadium's dome. And this is the one that I just made for you today. And so these are the sizes, and each of the grids, each of the boxes in the grid is 8 by 8 square. Oops. Okay, so I think this should wrap up my presentation for today for hollow domes, and I will be switching off to the next host.
Hey everybody, we are between presentations, so I'm just going to play a quick little video. Give me a second to get this set up. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully you guys like that presentation. It's one of my favorites. Let's see here.